Yes, Martin in Shrewsbury says, should land be taxed? In New York State, for example, the state imposes a property tax on landowners to subsidise the local schools. As a UK landowner who owns forest land in New York, I must admit I don't mind paying it. Now, Andy Burnham has suggested potential reforms to council tax which could be based on the value of a property or the value of the land it is built on, which would be likely to mean homeowners in southern England pay more tax than people owning properties in other parts of the country. Well, any reform of property tax is going to be controversial. Leonie, what's your view on this?
Wow, this is like such a hot potato and nobody has touched it since the last valuation was done in 1991. So that tells you how much of a hot potato it is. I think he wants to open the discussion, though, because it's clear that stamp duty probably actually depresses the market because you pay it when you're buying a property. So, in that case, I might just do an extension on my house rather than buying somewhere new. So that doesn't help the market with people moving from one kind of home ownership into another, or even moving into home ownership at all. Then you've got this weird system with council tax where the bands finish as well. So if your property is worth £300,000, you pay the same amount of council tax as if your property is worth 3 million or 30 million. So that's a bit weird as well. And then the revaluation hasn't been done since 1991. And then you've also got business rates where they have just revalued. And that, as talking about impacts on business, has also had some difficulties for business. And I think if you're going to do something in this area of changing taxes and looking at land valuation tax or whatever, I think you've got to do all of those areas at the same time. And I am not saying, Ian, that I've got the answer to that. I think it's really complicated.
But also, don't voters have a right to vote on that sort of thing? Shouldn't that be for the next election manifesto rather than something they do now?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it would take that long to come forward with something and then get a consultation going so that at the next election that people could say whether it was a system that they wanted or not. And we really do know how controversial this has been, because when Margaret Thatcher brought in the poll tax, there were literally poll tax riots, and it was then promptly replaced with the community charge. So it's a fraught area. And in particular, if you're going to change things around and maybe have people in the south paying more, then how long a transitional period do you give people? Because I just don't think it's right to say to people, oh, you're paying £1,000 this year, next year you're going to pay £5,000. For most people, that's not really how their money works. So I think you've got to think really carefully about what you want to bring in and how you then implement it. And I think there has to be a transitional period.
Rachel, I'm sure the Green Party has policy on this.
Yeah, we do think council tax is regressive. I think most people would agree at the very least that the last time property was valued, that determined what the tax level was.
35 years ago.
Was 35 years ago. I mean, property prices are completely different. So I think we can probably all agree that that is bound to be unfair. So I do think people with larger properties pay proportionately a lot less than people with smaller, and that's unfair. That's a regressive tax. We need people with the broader shoulders contributing the most. There's also the point that councils put the council tax up. You might have a ceiling to what you're allowed to do, but you do put it up. So you put it up depending on how much you need that for your services. You have more strain on your service provision the more deprived the area is. So actually, in a more deprived area, the council is more likely to have to put that tax up. So it's actually likely to be more poorer people who are paying more at the end of the day.
But what about this idea of a land value tax?
I think that's good. We're very pro that.
How would it work?
Oh, well, the nuts and bolts. I mean, basic principle is you pay a tax according to the value of the land that you have.
How do you get the cash? How do you get the cash to pay the tax?
How do you get the cash to pay the tax? Well, how do you get the cash?
So for example, farmers don't pay business rates. So if they've got, say 500 acres, there's got to be some mechanism, and inevitably that's going to be another cost.
Well, and farming is very specific, and we need to address that, I think, really carefully, because farmers do have land, often don't have much income, and we desperately need them to help feed the country. It's a kind of very specific point. But I think it is overall, and it's something that we're working towards in the detail of our policy, but overall it is a fairer system, and it would, I think, really help us raise more money for our public services and the rest of it and be really good for the economy, but it would definitely be fairer so that the poorer people had burden taken off them, which is what we want, which is what the economy wants as well, because we want them to be able to spend more.
Tony?
Well, I listened to Andy Burnham's interview with Laura Kuenssberg today, and he managed to basically speak for 50 minutes without saying very much. He's really good at that. But the reality is, we already have the highest tax population. And Keir Starmer, when he was opposition leader, said the Tories had taxes too high. And for once, he was right. So what did he do when he came in? He put taxes up. And now Burnham's going to put even more taxes up. And the reality is, I can tell you, in central London, we're already being whacked by taxes for everything. The latest one came out last December, where Rachel Reeves put out just before Christmas to mainly 5 central London boroughs that you're going to cut your grant by over £100 million. That's 46% of our grants over the next 4 years. Now we've got a choice. We can either slash public services, or we can put council tax up through the roof. And we're considering what we're going to do at the moment, and we're consulting the public, as we should do. But on top of that, Burnham is coming up with numerous other suggestions. And our residents are already rather fed up with tax increases under the last Conservative government, the last Labour government, and now this Labour government. And the reality is, you'll keep putting tax up as much as you want. People will leave the country. The wealth creators are already leaving the country. And when I talk to people, and I was talking to a very successful businessman last week, and he said literally all his friends, and he's the £500 million level of wealth. He says he's one of the last few that's still living in my patch. And
Rachel, you're shaking your head.
Well, this is in this country, we're the 6th largest economy in the world.
Fifth now.
Oh, 5th largest.
We were the 4th.
We've overtaken India.
And the top 50 families have the same wealth as the bottom 50%. We do need to stop this hoarding of wealth at the top. We do need that money to circle around our economy.
Yeah, we go abroad. Exactly.
No, I don't agree with that. I think people are much more patriotic than that. I think people love living here. They've got family here. Their assets might be actual buildings that are here. And actually, I think it's a massive privilege to pay tax. I think it is something you can be really excited. If you've created enough wealth that you can provide, for
Rachel,
primary schools,
we're not
hospitals,
talking about
you should feel really proud of that.
Rachel,
You should maybe have a word with Zach then about paying council
Rachel, we're not
tax.
just talking about.
He's desperate too. The council isn't giving him a blinking answer. It's been months, seriously.
Rachel, we're not just talking about billionaires. The average person in central London now owns a house that is worth 6 figures, low 6 figures, and those people are going to be taxed and taxed and taxed.
No, I mean,
and
to be fair, our wealth
if you
tax
are a
wouldn't.
70 or 80-year-old resident who had the house when it was literally worth tens or early hundreds of thousands of pounds, and now it is worth several million pounds,
I mean, for the
you
record,
are going to be absolutely
damaged
damaged under Mr. Burnham.
Well, our wealth tax, just for the record, is 10 million and above, it's 1%, and $1 billion and above, it's 2%. It's a very small percentage, but it does allow more of a building of a better society for all of us.
I don't think you should judge the whole of London on the basis of Mayfair and Belgravia, where you represent, Tony.
That's a good point.
I do talk
they
to
are
people all over London
different.
and the rest of the country, Leon.
Yeah, but
even Wandsworth.
There are parts of London where property prices are not quite as high
And there are
as
people
Mayfair and Belgravia,
who are
let's face
renting.
it.
There are lots of people who are renting,
Lots of
and
people.
they need the burden taken off them. And that's the point: is we need to be reducing tax to the people who are struggling.